In Asia, in the heart of the biggest continent on the planet, traversing an entire country from east to west, the Great Wall of China. Constructed on rocky ridges at an altitude of more than 1,000 meters, this remarkable structure is the largest ever built by man in terms of length, mass, and surface area.
It's majestic, it is imposing.
It's the largest man-made structure on the planet.
It is incredible.
This marvel of the ancient world was built from nearly 4 billion bricks. To the 16 million tourists who visit each year, only a short 80-kilometer section near Beijing is well known. But when observed by satellite, we discovered that this wall, also known as the Dragon, crosses no fewer than 15 Chinese provinces.
It would take 2 years walking from one end of the wall to another. So that just gives you an idea of the scale.
It's the endless wall, the wall without end.
While the human eye can't detect the full extent of this incredible construction, the latest technology allows experts to calculate the true length of the wall by detecting hidden portions of it.
We found several new sections of wall which had never been discovered before.
Now, intact walls dating back 2,000 years have been discovered, and new technology is exposing a construction technique that shows the genius of ancient builders.
This technique makes it possible to transform the earth into stone. It's an incredible technique.
By examining the wall from a satellite scale down to a molecular level, today's experts seek to dissect the techniques of yesterday's builders. They aim to unravel the mysteries of this jewel of humanity and use the newest science to find the truth behind its construction.
It becomes more and more solid over time.
They became virtually impenetrable, even to cannonballs.
Thanks to the latest technology, we can lift the veil on the extraordinary construction methods of this UNESCO World Heritage site by scanning the walls, surveying its depth, and taking to the sky.
Building a wall like this at such a high altitude, it's a true feat of architecture.
What revolutionary techniques allow the Chinese to construct thousands of kilometers of wall in under 70 years and on such steep terrain? And what secret ingredient, recently revealed by science, explains its unbelievable longevity?
A brick is a brick, or so I thought. But no, these bricks are exceptional.
History, science, construction, examined like never before. The Great Wall of China reveals its secrets on every scale. The Great Wall of China's world fame owes a lot to its unique form. Snaking through the mountains of northern China, this incredible structure was built to protect the Chinese Middle Kingdom from Mongolian attacks. But what visitors can't see at first glance is the true extent of this engineering feat, constructed over 2,000 years.
It is the longest man-made monument on Earth, and it is colossal.
It almost transcends nature because it crosses very inhospitable terrain. It goes across deserts, over mountains, to the sea.
Over thousands of kilometers, it doesn't exist anywhere else.
For more than a century, archaeologists and explorers have traveled across most of Asia, following the wall by foot in order to chart this jewel of humanity. Now experts can use the latest technology, like spatial imaging, to observe the extent of this Chinese monument and visualize it like never before on a satellite scale. It crosses the wild plains of the western Gobi Desert, snakes through the northern mountains, and finally plunges into the Yellow Sea in northeast China. The wall is so vast that, at its eastern end, the sun rises a full 1 hour and 20 minutes later than at its western extremity. The length of this wall was long calculated using observations taken by the naked eye. In 2012, it was estimated at 6,700 kilometers long, a little more than the length of China. But now, thanks to new technology like drones and radar systems on a satellite scale, archaeologists have the means to explore a new hypothesis, that the wall's true length is much greater. Today, investigators think that many parts of the Great Wall of China are invisible to the naked eye. That sections have become hidden underground or destroyed over the centuries and have not been added to the total length of the wall. It's a hypothesis backed up by the study of ancient texts, and also by a very particular expression from the Chinese language.
The Chinese refer to the Great Wall as, in Chinese, 1 li chang chang.
1 li, which means 10,000 leagues, is a way of saying that something is extremely big, even immeasurable.
It's not an absolute measurement. When the Chinese speak in terms of numbers, they signify certain things. For example, 100 means many. 1,000 means the great multitude. 10,000 is almost an eternal figure. So 1 li, the 10,000 miles, means it's the endless wall, the wall without end.
But beyond the myth, how many kilometers of this endless wall will be revealed? What is the real length of this incredible fortification? This wall, which is also known as the Dragon. Determined to use all of the latest technology to reassess the length of the monument, in 2007, China appealed to the country's experts. For 5 long years, Xu Yujun led a team that investigated the entire territory in search of an answer.
Determining the length of the wall is very complicated work, because in most cases there are several superimposed layers.
This military fortification, whose history started over 2,000 years ago, has regularly been repaired or rebuilt over the centuries. So, to accurately determine the total length of the wall, Xu Yujun focused on tracking down missing portions, hunting for sections now destroyed or underground. This Herculean task to find areas invisible to the human eye was facilitated by the latest digital technology.
After having located visible portions of the remains, we then used the GPS to rebuild the portions of destroyed wall.
Then, on an airborne scale, the use of remote sensing took over. By flying over areas determined by the archaeologists, radars swept the ground to establish a precise location for every centimeter of the wall it found. The technology emits electromagnetic waves towards the Earth, which are reflected back to the transmitter, revealing remains that were invisible to the naked eye in remote areas of the Gobi Desert.
We found several new sections of wall which had never been discovered before. 6 or 7 years ago, this allowed us to define the Great Wall's new starting point, thanks to a new portion of wall found in the desert. It was much further than what the archives mentioned to begin with.
Now, satellite imagery allows for the visualization of the results of this huge mapping project. When seen from the sky, the discovery is astonishing. It is not one single wall, but many spread across the whole of China.
According to our investigation, there are about no fewer than 40,000 sections.
The wall is not a long, steady river, if I can use that expression. It's anything but a single line, even if it is winding. It was several ramparts over certain places in China.
There are many sections of the wall which are to the north or to the south of the Ming Wall as we know it, and this is due to its historical composition.
Portions from different eras, which added together in 2012, revealed the true length of the wall.
The length we have assessed today is 21,196 kilometers in total.
Over 21,000 kilometers. That's 4 times more than the 6,700 kilometers previously calculated. An immense number, which makes the Great Wall of China easily the longest monument in the world.
To actually arrive at a figure of 21,000 kilometers is something that no other country can match. A fit person, it would take them 2 years, walking 8 hours a day from one end of the wall to another. So that just gives you an idea of the scale.
To put that in perspective, The circumference of the globe is around about 40,000 kilometers. So that would stretch halfway around the world. That is amazing.
As well as revealing the extraordinary length of the wall, the radar measurements allowed the discovery of portions of the wall built no less than 1,600 years before the parts near Beijing that are best known to the general public. But what did these 1,000-year-old, totally unknown portions of the Great Wall look like? And what materials and techniques did the first builders use to make them? To discover these mysterious remains, we have to head 2,500 kilometers northwest of Beijing to the gates of Mongolia and the Gobi Desert. It is here that archaeologists, with the help of satellite radars, rediscovered the oldest remains of the Great Wall of China. Fortifications which measured up to 9 meters in height.
Since the last discoveries, we have brought to light no less than 168 kilometers of new portions of the wall. What's surprising is that a third of the walls are still in good condition.
To better understand why this result is surprising, we have to shift to a microscopic scale to better understand the composition of these walls. They are made of compacted earth and sand.
For us, we think of a wall as stone and brick. Most of the wall was built on beaten earth, with additives which, incidentally, are sometimes secret.
So, what is the first secret construction technique that allowed these 2,200-year-old structures to withstand over 22 centuries of war, wind, and this desert's extreme temperatures? First of all, it is traditional excavation work which allowed archaeologists to analyze these ancient walls. But now, thanks to 3D modeling techniques, it is possible to visualize the wall like never before. The wall was composed of different layers formed of materials from the region, layers of compacted earth interspersed with dried reeds. Computer modeling allows scientists to better understand the first builders' construction methods. But to confirm or disprove their hypothesis, they made giant models for real. At this construction site, investigators want to reveal the secret of the wall's longevity.
To build the wall, you first frame the earth with wooden molds. You then add the earth and the layers of reeds, and to finish, you tamp it down.
It's a very, very simple technology. You use a wooden former that's fixed in place.
To be able to frame the wall,
You mix up the earth, the sand, the gravel with some water in situ. And each layer has to be pounded down to compress it, and it's that compression that gives it its strength.
3D modeling techniques allow the visualization of the compression effect on the earth. On a microscopic scale, it removes pockets of air, allowing the material to become more compact and solid. But for scientists, this ancient construction method, known as rammed earth, doesn't fully explain how these walls were so robust. So how was this earth transformed into a material as hard as stone, capable of standing for over 2 millennia? The answer to this mystery is revealed on a satellite scale. At this scale, remains can be located 100 kilometers from the Los Plateau, a plateau which bears the name of the very fine sand which covers it. Sand is scattered by the winds to the level of the wall. On a microscopic scale, researchers discovered that 20% of it was composed of clay, but there was more. On a molecular scale, they identified a very particular molecule, calcium carbonate.
calcium carbonate, which exists on the Earth's surface as limestone, as chalk, as seashells, and also as snail shells. When it breaks down, it acts as a cement in the formation of mortars. And in the Gobi Desert, you actually see snail shells which were crushed and broken down and added to the mortar to give it this additional strength, this reinforcing otherwise would not have.
The unique composition of the Los Plateau, with its clay soil and small shells, is one of the builder's secrets. Once ground up by hammer, the shells let out calcium carbonate, a hydraulic binder which, once dried, acquires an extraordinary resistance comparable to that of cement.
Calcium carbonate is like lime, which is ground up limestone, which turns solid again when it's humidified.
It dries out and it's as solid, it's almost as solid as concrete.
But on its own, it wouldn't have sufficient strength to be able to withstand the elements or withstand attack.
The discovery at the microscopic scale that loose sand contains molecules of calcium carbonate exposes one of the secrets to the wall's extraordinary resistance. But it is on a human scale, by carrying out excavations in the field, that experts discovered another clue to explain the wall's incredible longevity. Today, it's possible to visualize the results in 3D. The layers of earth were poured like concrete around long rows of reeds. But why did the Chinese choose this particular plant material? And what is its role?
So the Chinese used water reeds to reinforce the wall. And this acted like the steel mesh that we use in concrete today.
The layer of reeds is part of the wall's foundation. Not only is it used to reinforce it, but also to make it more supple. The primary function of these reeds is to make the wall sturdy, but their second function is just as important, ventilating the walls.
These earth walls have a weakness. They absorb humidity. By carrying out simulations of the reed's function, 3D imagery allows researchers to confirm their hypothesis and reveal that the reeds had a double role. This hollow plant material reinforces the walls, but also ventilates them.
And alternate layers of these reeds would create this sort of tensile strength, which made the wall very strong. But because the reeds were hollow, if the wall got wet, it would not stay wet because the air would circulate and dry the reeds. Otherwise, they would rot.
These observations reveal the genius of the ancient builders. Without modern technology, they located clay sand in the desert to successfully build a solid, reinforced structure capable of self-ventilation. An incredibly resistant wall that would withstand wars and harsh weather.
One of the enduring qualities of the Great Wall is that whilst it uses very resilient materials, it also is flexible and it's permeable, and it can accommodate ground movements, seasonal movements, and it's far more resilient than a rigid structure would be today.
And what you're left with is this huge wall that is so strong that you could get in a bulldozer and take a run up, but it's not going to go anywhere. You're just going to hit a brick wall, effectively, except it's a rammed earth wall.
This technique makes it possible to virtually transform the earth into stone. It's an incredible technique.
The latest technology has shed new light on the hidden face of the Great Wall. In total, over 10,000 kilometers of wall and earthen fortifications of extraordinary strength. A strength that proved essential when the Chinese Middle Kingdom was faced with repeated attacks from the north. Whether the territory crossed deserts, plains, or mountains, the Chinese needed a speed of construction that was unprecedented. The most striking example can be found near Beijing. Here, the Ming Dynasty built from the 15th century no fewer than 8,500 kilometers of wall in a record time of only 70 years. At the time, the Middle Kingdom had to face the worst assailants it had ever known, the Mongolians. As a consequence, builders were obliged to urgently find revolutionary techniques to construct thousands of kilometers of wall at lightning speed.
During the Ming Dynasty, there was this impatience, this urgency to build the wall very quickly.
Building a wall like this so quickly was a true feat of architecture.
So, How did Ming builders succeed in constructing their wall in just a few decades? What secrets is this fortification hiding that explains the incredible speed of its construction? Today, the latest technology proves invaluable for research. Like many archaeologists, Su Yujun's team usually works on the ground. But since 2018, the use of drones has allowed her to better understand the structure of the Great Wall of China and help solve the mystery of the incredible speed of its construction.
The idea of building the Great Wall is actually to adapt to local conditions, to follow the mountain range. A great advantage of drones is that they can film where humans cannot go.
Covered by vegetation and difficult to access because of the dizzying heights, many collapsed portions of the wall are almost impossible to explore through traditional means. Now, thanks to this drone, equipped with sophisticated cameras, researchers can learn more about these dangerous areas and capture tiny details on an aerial scale.
This method is more effective than surveillance by the human eye. I can film just about anywhere.
In a few places which were either not rebuilt at all or which were simply abandoned. In those parts, archaeologists can very clearly see the outline of the wall, so they can reconstruct how high it must have been, how wide.
The drone is capable of covering the full site on an aerial scale. It's equipped with multiple cameras that record an immense amount of data. By processing the data with powerful artificial intelligence programs, researchers can recreate the crumbled walls in 3D and analyze the structure of each portion.
Since I started my research, I have learned a great deal of information about the Great Wall. And in certain cases, it wasn't at all what I had imagined.
Today, three-dimensional imagery lets researchers detect precious clues which could explain the rapid speed of these walls' construction. To the naked eye, this monumental structure seems to be cut into the rock because of its gray-blue color. But analyzing scans of the wall shows its true nature and the materials from which it's made.
The Ming walls look from afar as if they were built with rocks.
When you look closely, you see that it's broken down into component parts which are human scale.
We notice that there are some stone foundations which can be seen, but most of the wall is, in fact, made up of bricks.
3D images reveal the structure of this incredible fortification. The Ming builders chose to use granite, but only for the foundations. On top, to accelerate the process of construction, they decided to use bricks to build a gigantic facade. This was their primary technique to quickly build enormous parts of the wall.
There is no shortage of rocks, natural rocks, because most of the territory that is being used is mountainous. So they could have chiseled out large stone blocks. However, to get them into a square size, into a rectangular size, would have taken a lot of time.
These bricks were preferred to stone because they were easier to build with and had another advantage. Ming builders could create large bricks that helped accelerate the speed of construction. By using 3D modeling to compare the size of a classic brick to the size of a brick made for this Chinese monster, the difference becomes clear.
They made their bricks 4 times the size of normal bricks. So you are increasing your output of material by 4 times.
It's a brick which can weigh up to 10 kilos. It also allows for portions of wall to be made faster, and finally they fit together more simply than very small bricks do.
This ingenious trick helped builders to construct an impressive 8,500 kilometers of wall in only 70 years. Today, Scientists are investigating the Ming engineers' extraordinary exploits. Thanks to drones and artificial intelligence, they can deduce the incredible number of bricks assembled over the entire length of the wall.
It's been calculated that the bricks that have been used to build the Great Wall of China, total, it's just shy of 4 billion. That is an incredible amount of bricks.
There's no doubt that these bricks, end to end, could go around the planet 2 or 3 times.
Billions of bricks, which on a microscopic scale reveal that they are 75% composed of clay, a material which is malleable and easy to work with.
You also have to envision the conditions at the time. There was a desire to make something quickly, and also something with the materials of the regions which were crossed.
So, where did the builders obtain the billions of tons of clay necessary to rapidly construct so many kilometers of wall? To solve this mystery, a bird's eye view is necessary to observe the Chinese landscape on a satellite scale. The Ming Wall, fixed atop rocky ridges, is situated only a few kilometers from steep and narrow valleys. 3D modeling techniques allows the visualization of the territory's geology and makes it possible to detect information which is invisible to the naked eye. At the foot of the mountains, a cross-section of ground reveals large reserves of clay situated between earth and rock at a depth of 1 meter.
It's part of the local geology, but there's still vegetation which is fixed on this terrain. So the Mings ripped out the vegetation and directly attacked the layer of clay which was there.
In the interest of efficiency, Ming builders formed bricks using the raw material located at the site, the clay from the foot of the mountains. But how did they cook billions of bricks in record time? Part of the answer is found in the small town of Bangchangyu, 300 kilometers from Beijing. Guowatsu is one of the descendants of the builders who came to the south of China to construct this large part of the Great Wall. A wall which today has mostly been knocked down.
Our ancestors built the Great Wall of China, so seeing it in this state breaks my heart.
To honor the memory of his ancestors, Guowatsu directs an astounding restoration project on behalf of the Chinese government. His work site is located in a valley at the foot of the Great Wall, where reserves of clay used by the Ming can still be found. During preparatory excavations, his team of experts made a remarkable discovery: countless ovens hidden under the earth.
The ovens are underground, and they are very particular. They are round. We call them horseshoe ovens. According to the archives, there were 20 people per oven, and in total, there were 271 brickworks.
On a satellite scale, we can visualize the full extent of this discovery. Hundreds of ovens all situated in the valley directly next to the source of clay. The proximity reduced the time of production and sped up their transport to the wall.
The ancient brickworks were always situated close to the Great Wall. It saved on labor because it was people who carried the bricks to the top.
The kilns were firing 5,000 to 10,000 bricks at a time. So you can just imagine that the whole area where they were firing bricks would be like the Industrial Revolution.
By setting up the production site at the foot of the mountain, the Chinese were able to build thousands of kilometers of wall in only a few decades. But they also developed a revolutionary method for baking bricks that allowed them to supply the construction site faster. Today, at the restoration site near Bangchangyu, the techniques developed by the Ming are recreated to mold and bake giant bricks identical to those used in the Great Wall of China. The technique takes time, 2 weeks of drying in the sun and no fewer than 48 hours of baking. To speed up production, builders found an ingenious way to save time during the last stage, when the bricks needed to be cooled after baking.
When you fire a brick kiln, when you shut the fires out, there's 2 or 3 days where you wait until the bricks are cool enough to be able to handle. So what the engineers discovered was that on the top of the kiln, if you dig this little moat, fill it with water, it allows them to cool down much more quickly without cracking.
The efficient cooling technique developed by the Ming had an unexpected effect on the color of the bricks.
The bricks on the Great Wall are a uniform grey colour, and that is unusual in an area where the clay fires at a terracotta red colour.
The unusual color is a result of the cold water poured onto the hot ovens to cool them down more quickly.
The other thing it does is it creates steam, and it creates steam in the kiln to the point where fresh air can't get in. So that means that the iron that is contained within the clay can't oxidize.
At that moment, the chemical reactions are not the same, and the iron oxides become grayish.
Through observations on a microscopic scale, scientists discovered an explanation to the unique color of the bricks. The red clay contains iron oxide, which turns red upon contact with air. But reduced oxygen levels inside the oven resulted in the bricks staying gray, like stone.
It stays this greyish-blue colour, and it's quite distinctive.
The Chinese weren't trying to create grey bricks, they were trying to get them out quicker, but by accident they discovered that you can change the colour of the clay by taking the oxygen out.
Through a physical reaction caused by the accelerated cooling of ovens, Ming builders changed the face of the Great Wall of China forever. Thanks to the incredible speed of production, they successfully made billions of bricks to construct thousands of kilometers of wall in only a few centuries. But once the wall had been built, engineers faced a new challenge: to resist repeated assaults by the Mongolians, who were increasingly well armed.
In fact, gunpowder was used to try and dislodge the stones and tear down the walls, but with no success. So they had extremely strong walls.
They became virtually impenetrable, even to firearms, to cannonballs, which were being used from the 16th century onwards.
How did the Ming give their fortification its extraordinary resistance? And what secret ingredients did they hide in the heart of the walls to allow its incredible longevity? According to specialists, the secret to the strength of China's Great Wall can be found within its bricks.
They were very, very high technology, even by today's standards. I mean, a brick is a brick, or so I thought. But no, these bricks are exceptional.
And they are extremely hard.
The analysis of ancient texts, coupled with the recent discoveries of hundreds of ovens, have brought to light the technical revolution developed here in the 16th century. This traditional research work allowed the investigators of the past to analyze the revolutionary ovens used by Ming builders. But today, the latest 3D modeling technology lets experts visualize the inside of the ovens too. Buried at a depth of several meters, they were covered with a round roof under which the bricks were placed. By reproducing the exceptional mastery of fire from the 16th century, archaeologists have discovered the recipe that allows these bricks to be particularly resistant.
Baking is the most delicate stage because you have to control the fire well in order for the bricks to be baked correctly.
Managing the fires, managing the increase in temperature is perhaps the most difficult thing of fire in a brick kiln.
Baking bricks directly in the fire could make them burst. So the goal of ancient builders was to produce constant and durable heat in their ovens. After being dried in the sun, the bricks were placed one on top of the other with enough space between them to let the heat through. But how were they baked without being burned? Archaeologists' research, coupled with 3D imagery, allows them to better understand heat management in this horseshoe-shaped oven, as well as the role of a strangely rounded earth roof. In fact, the fire wasn't underneath the bricks, but next to it, in a tunnel, which served as an inlet for hot air. The shape of the oven forced the heat between the bricks and out through the chimney. So, the baking, which approached 1,000 degrees Celsius, was particularly even.
They elevated brick-making technology to a level that you don't see today.
These are very hard bricks which can be reused many times. So in other words, the Ming had actually perfected the art of the burning of bricks to the extent that it became a military secret.
The brickworks were guarded 24 hours a day by the Ming army and worked constantly to produce thousands of extremely resistant bricks weighing up to 10 kilos. Nearly 4 billion of these bricks were carried up the mountain to build the wall. But inside, workers had hidden a secret ingredient, invisible to the naked eye. An essential element that gives the entire structure its incredible strength.
These bricks are there not only to provide the structure, but to contain the core of the wall.
So, what is hidden inside the Great Wall of China? Imagery taken by drones reveals precious clues. In the middle of the mountains, open parts of the wall make it possible to analyze the composition of the heart of this World Heritage site. On a macroscopic scale, we discover rock, and in particular, granite, a very dense and hard material.
These stones are resistant to sun, wind, whatever their size, large and small. So they were placed inside the wall throughout the construction.
But why didn't the builders choose to construct the entire width of the wall in brick?
You wouldn't use premium materials in locations you didn't need to. So the bricks and the stone create the face or the skin of the wall. And inside is the rubble, which is carved out of the rock in preparing the foundation. There's earth, which is displaced when you're digging down into the clay for the bricks. So all the material is used.
Today, by modeling the monument, investigators can detect the invisible and expose the inside of this gigantic fortification. Above the granite slabs, the Ming packed rubble made up of granite and earth. Then stone slabs were used to seal the structure.
So an entire mountain was easily sufficient to construct a very high and imposing fortification, very difficult to access, with slightly inclined walls.
Once this had been attained, it became almost impenetrable.
This ingenious technique was used to build a wall of immense dimensions, over 7 meters high and even reaching 12 meters at the lookout towers which punctuate the fortification. Steep-sided walls of breathtaking longevity whose incredible resistance is due to a final secret ingredient. An ingredient recently revealed by science. As well as gathering structural data about this gigantic fortification, drone technology allows the visualization of the wall like never before thanks to new sensors. These sensors allow investigators to determine every material used in the wall and unravel the mystery of its strength.
The data depends on the capacity of the sensors.
The first innovative technology fixed to the drone is infrared thermography. This equipment can see through cloud and fog to highlight the changes in temperature of different materials, revealing it through a special color scheme.
So the lighter it is, the hotter it is?
Yes.
Once analyzed by a heat technician, this imagery gives precious information about the materials used.
Different materials send different thermal information. In this case, we provide data on the state of the aging of the bricks. If, for example, we add a hyperspectral sensor, we can pick up an extra 100 wavelengths.
Attached to the drone, the hyperspectral sensor records rays invisible to the naked eye by interpreting the intensity of infrared signals that reach the camera on a level which has never been attained before. To the naked eye, or with a normal camera, we can make out the colors of the material. But with the hyperspectral sensor, scientists can see the chemical components of the wall.
In this case, we can detect the component materials and the percentage in clay, for example. Or if the wall contains cement, we can see everything here. We can do precise analysis of the components of the bricks, the mortar, or the construction of the Great Wall.
Thanks to this data, scientists can compare the chemical composition of each portion of the wall. And it has allowed them to make a startling revelation about the ancient builders' biggest construction secret. Researchers have observed that mortar, which was used by the Ming to cover bricks over 600 years ago, seems to have an extraordinary chemical composition. This unique mortar blends both non-organic compounds like rock or sand with a mysterious organic compound.
The Ming dynasty, not only were they building with these beautiful blue bricks, but they also had a secret ingredient used in the mortar between those bricks.
They're actually sealed by a kind of concrete, which makes them impenetrable against human attacks, but then also against the elements.
In the mountains, you get temperatures which drop down minus 30, minus 40, and it needs a much more resilient mortar.
So, what secret ingredient did the builders use to give the wall its incredible longevity? In the field, archaeologists discovered a material that was strangely white. The color, associated with the mortar's indestructible reputation, has spawned a macabre legend.
We imagined that the dead workers could have been buried inside the wall.
Contemporary sources demonstrate that there was a belief that people were actually buried in the wall, or the bones were ground up to make mortar. So far, no bone fragments have actually been found within the wall itself.
During all of the years of restoration, we have never found a single bone, except for animal bones. Soldiers hunted to improve their living conditions, so they left the animal bones here. Those were the bones that we found here, not human ones.
So, if human bones weren't used to build the wall, what secret ingredient made it so robust? The analysis of samples on a microscopic scale told experts that the mortar was made out of sand, rock, and lime, a material made of calcium carbonate. But at first glance, nothing reveals the organic component detected by infrared. In order to reproduce ancient techniques, during his restoration of the Great Wall, Goatsu took a particular interest in his builder ancestors' secret recipe.
Here, we can see that the brick fell and broke, but the mortar stayed intact. To uncover its secret, we're going to take a sample and send it to be analyzed in a laboratory.
After centuries of legend, science now has the means to unravel the secrets of this wall's construction by analyzing material on a molecular scale. In the south of Shanghai, at the University of Zhejiang, Dr. Zhang's team patiently studied the samples of mortar in their laboratory. The mission of this material specialist is to find the origin of the organic molecule contained in the mortar using an iodine-based chemical test.
We add a drop of iodine to see if the sample changes color. If it turns blue or red-brown, it will indicate that the sample contains starch.
This scientific test proves that starch, a molecule that can generally be found in plants, is present in this sample. But where does this mysterious ingredient come from?
We carried out a precise analysis and found that it contains sticky rice.
Dr. Zhang's research revealed the Chinese builders' secret. They used an ingredient from their daily diet to create one of the world's most unusual mortars.
And that was sticky rice. And the ingredient, what makes the rice sticky, this was used in the wall.
Rice releases a water in which starch can be found.
We noticed that starch improves the material's resistance by reacting with lime.
The latest 3D modeling technology makes it possible to examine the exceptional properties of sticky rice mortar on a molecular scale. Starch is composed of a molecule called amylopectin, which has long branches that trap molecules of calcium carbonate contained in lime, preventing them from crystallizing. Because the crystals are much smaller than in an ordinary mortar, they are more strongly bonded and incredibly resistant.
According to the tests, we found that a mortar composed of 2% to 5% sticky rice is more resistant to compression, to force, and with a more tolerant surface, which indeed improves its resistance to water and air.
Scientists also discovered that the Great Wall of China's mortar is sturdy on the outside and soft and supple on the inside. An extraordinary characteristic which has allowed the wall to resist extreme temperatures over the centuries, as well as earthquakes and even cannon fire. In addition to making the mortar resistant, starch protects the molecules of lime, restricting their contact with any air inside the mortar. When the hard lime erodes onto the surface, the soft lime behind it solidifies, adding to the wall's exceptional longevity.
When the walls erode, for example because of an earthquake, the part which is exposed to air continues to transform into calcium carbonate. By this means, the eroded part reforms and solidifies again. This incredible display is called automatic restoration.
According to scientists, sticky rice mortar is one of the Chinese civilization's major inventions.
Is what is possibly the first known composite mortar. So it's the first known mortar that uses both inorganic compounds like rocks or sand with organic compounds, rice flour.
If you ask me how effective sticky rice mortar is, as time passes, it becomes more sturdy. Cement decomposes over time. Sticky rice mortar gets harder over time. It's remarkable. It's brilliant work.
Decade after decade, the latest technology has unraveled many of the Great Wall's mysteries. Like its true length, at 21,196 kilometers, a large part of which has lasted millennia, thanks to a structure made of rammed earth and layers of reeds. And scientific analysis has shown how clay bricks and composite mortar is the explanation for the resistance of the most well-known sections of the wall. But researchers think there are still secrets to uncover.
It's only recently that we're really starting to look at exactly how the Great Wall has been made up. And I think there's so much more to discover.
Archaeologists are still hunting for missing sections of the Great Wall that remain lost underground. And the search is already provoking debate about its official 21,000-kilometer length.
Personally, I think the number is even higher. I think that it is about 50,000 kilometers if we add up all of the pieces of wall built here or there in China over millennia.
It is as great as the greatest natural phenomenon on Earth. It is like the roof of the world. It's like the Himalayas. Here is something that humans created.
This is a monument in harmony with nature, snaking across steep terrain and still making specialists wonder about the technical and human means used to build it.
There are certain places along the wall we can't reach, so we still have no idea how they built some of the towers.
How the logistics were coordinated over thousands of years to maintain this momentum building the wall. To me, that is a very great mystery.